Okay, so I've watched this Gillette advert that I know a lot of people have watched, and I want to give you my thoughts on this. It's an interesting advert. It certainly provoked a series of responses from me. But it was interesting to see the response, the very negative response that it got, and then the response that those responses got. The expected sniffy media response. Well, if you ever wanted to know that there's toxic masculinity, look at the way that men responded to this advert. Typical men. If you ever wanted to know why we should be looking down our noses on the average man, look at the responses to this video. And my initial response to this video, it was interesting because looking at it, there's a lot in there. And there's a mixed bag of messages, and there was a couple of parts of this video that I took exception to, but there were some other parts of the video that I didn't take so much exception to, and I thought those are messages that I'm on board with, but nevertheless, notwithstanding that, it doesn't seem to be the place. It still doesn't sit right for me that my razor company is lecturing me on these things, that is politically posturing on these things to begin with. That isn't what I want. I don't want to go into watching a razor advert expecting there to be a partisan political message, and I'm going to have to see whether I'm in agreement with them or not on this political message. Maybe I'm just being a little bit too traditionalist here, but I kind of want a razor advert to be about fucking razors. And we seem to be getting farther away from that now. More and more of these corporations seem to want to do this, seem to want to, as Jonathan Pye says, wrap these campaigns with their fucking corporate colours and virtue signal by doing so. And he's bang on, because this is what he's doing. And most of us are turned off by that. Whether or not, it shouldn't boil down to whether or not you agree with the message. More fundamentally is whether this is the right environment to do this. Whether products should be being tied to these messages to begin with. And quite frankly, I'm on what I think is the majority of people who say, no, I don't want any of this shit. Quite honestly. There were some bits that I didn't like. One of the comments that I saw on the BBC website, and to be fair for the BBC's website, which is horribly skewed, it's worse than the BBC News channel. It doesn't seem to have to abide by their attempt to provide some balance that broadcast news has to have in the UK. The website's just as horribly skewed as it wanted to be, but this particular article provided tweets from both sides. But one of the tweets was the typical, obviously the message in this video doesn't apply to all men. So if you're one of the men that isn't doing these toxic things, why are you concerned by it? Which is one of the old fucking tropes that you hear trotted out whenever any criticism is made of men. Obviously it's not applying to all men. Right, but actually there's a part in this video which very much signified that at least that part of it was. What was the imagery of all those guys with those barbecues stretching into the distance? Every single man stretching in the distance going, boys will be boys. Right, it was saying that was a negative attitude. That's part of toxic masculinity. And every single man there was doing it. Every single one without exception. So whilst other parts of the video you could show, well, it did show men that shave with Gillette razors, it must be pointed out. They're the good guys, right? It actually showed that no, actually, well, maybe not all men, but just 99%. As far as you can see, there might be a guy in the distance there who's not saying it, but as many as you can see, it's pretty much all of them. And then there was this other guy, this quote on there, men need to hold other men accountable. Yeah, no shit. Men need to hold other men accountable, but men need to hold women accountable, and women need to hold women accountable, and women need to hold men accountable. We all, as a culture, need to hold each other accountable. I cannot imagine it, visualise in a million years an advert with a product aimed at women pointing out that women need to hold other women accountable. That you as a woman, you might not have any failings, but other women do, and you need to be scolding and berating them for having the kind of femininity that they have. I think that would go down like a fucking lead balloon, quite honestly. And that chimed in with a comment that was on the Guardian's article. They quoted a tweet by a guy called Andrew P. Street, a journalist. He'd had his tweets shared thousands of times that said the comment under the Gillette toxic masculinity ad, cliche alert, is a living document of how desperately society needs things like the Gillette toxic masculinity ad. Smug reuse of one of the most tired feminist cliches ever. Oh, every comment left under a feminist article is evidence of why we still need feminism. Just rehashing that. But this was the important thing. He said, seriously, if your masculinity is that threatened by an ad that says we should be nicer, then you're doing masculinity wrong. Or maybe doing femininity wrong, because I thought that being sensitive was widely regarded traditionally as a feminine characteristic. So if people are being sensitive about it, how is that regarded as a masculine characteristic all of a sudden? I'll tell you why. Because it's negative. And if it's negative, then that's part of masculinity. Effectively, that is the stall that you are setting out there. And several people have pointed this out, and I have to have some agreement with this, that if this was an advert aimed at women making the same kind of skew, that it would go down like a fucking lead balloon. Right? Women, feminists in particular, would be up in arms about the negative message, negative stereotypes, etc., etc. And no account of, well, it's not all women that this is aimed at, because what it would be saying is either you're a woman and this is the typical failings that some women have, and even if you're not one of those women, you should be berating and scolding and holding to account those women who do have those failings. Instead, we have quite a common phenomena now, socio-political adverts. These are for products that have a socio-political message towards women, but it's always a wonderfully uplifting message, isn't it? It's always, oh, you're women, you're wonderful things. Women are wonderful people, capable of amazing things, and all you need to do is to just grasp your femininity and run with it and be the wonderful woman that you are, and just be woman and say, I am woman and I am strong and I'm amazing and I can achieve whatever I like as long as I stick one of these tampons up my minge. The world is my fucking oyster, right? It's tired, it's cliched, it's pathetic, and it has most women rolling their eyes as well as most men, but that is the kind of message. You never in a million years have a negative message in an advert aimed at women, and I guarantee you if you did, the response would be at least as vitriolic as this. The only difference would be the vitriolic response would not just come from women, but it would come from the press as well. But we seem to be in a situation now where if you're a man, it's like you're expected to take a bit of a kicking every week or two. You're expected for societies to tell you how you're a little bit shit, right? Men, you're a bit crap and you need to take a bit of a berating every now and again. And if you're a proper man, proper masculinity, proper modern forward-thinking masculinity is to be able to be told how crap you are every now and again and not complain about it, quite frankly. At least that is how it comes across to me. Personally speaking, I'm less pissed off about the contents of this advert in terms of its particular political message than I am about the fact that it's making that political message at all, right? I do not want to have to review the political messages of the products that I buy to decide whether this particular product is in line with my thinking or not. I just want them to advertise the fucking product. Is that really too much to ask?